Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm doing week 24 of my 2022 reads. This week I read a bunch of very different books and I really enjoyed them, although I did have one DNF. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I finished Elena Knows by Claudia Piñeiro, translated from Spanish by Francis Riddle. This is a book that I'd heard about from Jen at Jen Campbell, who I'll link below. And I loved everything that I heard about it, and so I wanted to pick it up, and it really fulfilled all of the things that people are saying about it. So this is a novel about an older woman who has Parkinson's disease, and she is trying to go on a little bit of a journey. So it focuses on the current day where she's taking this train journey that's very difficult for her because her body is just very unresponsive to what she wants it to do, except right after she's taken her medication. And so she has to sort of plan her day around that. And it intersperses that journey with flashbacks to various things in her life. And what she's trying to accomplish is get some help from somebody who owes her a favor to look into her daughter's death. So her daughter died and it's been ruled a suicide, but Elena knows that her daughter wouldn't have been in the situation that she was in such that she thinks that suicide is completely out of the question. And so this story is really just a little bit of a murder mystery, but it's also really delving very deeply into Elena and her life and her relationship with her daughter. The narrative voice of this is just fantastic. I loved Elena's perspective. I loved the way that dialogue played out. It was such a gripping read. And I absolutely loved how the ending played out. It was not what I was expecting at all. And it was just such a really interesting read. Lots of content warnings for a couple of different things. So check those out in the description box if you want to know. And I just thought this was such a fascinating read, and I can see why Jen has loved it so much, and a bunch of other people too that I've heard mention it have really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I definitely recommend it. Next, I read Ace by Angela Chen. This is a book that I'd heard amazing things about, and I finally got to buddy read it with Meonicorn at the Bookish Land, who is such a great resource if you want anything nonfiction or stuff about all over the world. She's doing a lot of really cool reading projects on her channel, so definitely check her out. And it was just such a great experience to buddy read this book with her. So both of us had heard amazing things about this from, so many different reviewers, especially Ace reviewers have given this excellent reviews. And we both wanted to read about it and learn really kind of what the details are of asexuality in that experience. And so this book does a great job of delving into sort of definitions and teasing apart different aspects of identity and talking also about intersections of marginalizations and how that works with asexuality, especially when either you feel like being asexual plays into stereotypes of, your other marginalizations such as disability, or people dismiss your asexuality saying, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, if it intersects with other identities. And so just like that intersectionality approach, also the just way that it teased apart so many different things, like separated romance from sexuality and all these sorts of things, really, really helpful. And it was great to buddy read this with Meonicorn because sometimes there would be certain aspects that I wasn't quite clear on or she wasn't quite clear on, and through discussion we kind of built a bit of a better understanding. So that was excellent. I do think that at times it was a little wordy. It just wasn't quite as concise as I wanted it to be, but it also just had such good information. So I still think it was a really solid read, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Professor Next Door by Jackie Lau. This is book number 3 in the Cider Bar Sisters series, and this follows 2 neighbors, one who is a professor, and the other is a woman who has had some bad experiences in a relationship in the past where sort of her whole identity was consumed. And since then, she has been on a no relationships rule where she does not want to get into relationships, but she is very, very highly sexual. She loves sex. She wants to have a lot of sex. And so she just has flings all the time. And that is really working for her, except that every time she tries to set up like a recurrent sex buddy, they end up getting into some other relationship, which is very frustrating for her. Except until she meets her next door neighbor, who is both attractive and kind of available. And so they start to be sex buddies. But of course, feelings develop. So this story has, just like all of Jackie Lau's work, a ton of excellent food in it. They sort of go over to each other's houses every other Friday and share meals, and it's just wonderful. So much food in this. Also just kind of cooking family food and things like that. There's also great family in this. The female lead's grandmother comes in and she's become like a TikTok star, and it's just so funny. Lots of great banter there. The sex scenes are very, very steamy. I would say this leans almost a little bit towards the erotica side, and there's also a little bit of kink in here, some exhibitionism, voyeurism, things like that. But yeah, so this was a fun read, lots of fun banter, good characters, a little bit on the erotica side for me, and also I didn't love the third act breakup, but even so, really fun installment in this series, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I finished Bless the Daughter Raised by a Voice in Her Head by Warsan, Shire. I'm pretty sure that I heard about this from Alicia at Pretty Brown Eyed Reader, who I will link below. And this is a poetry collection that really is tackling a lot of themes and topics that I love. It's talking about immigration, it's talking about just kind of being refugees, it's talking about the treatment of women and girls. So lots of really great topics and themes, but also quite a lot of content warnings, so check those out if you're interested. Lots of just abuse of women and girls especially. There's a little bit of gruesomeness to this as well in some of the poems, but I think that the theming was just so well done. The topics that it was exploring were so interesting. It was also very interesting because it had kind of a religious theme that went throughout them, as you can kind of see from the title. So yeah, really fascinating poetry collection, just a bit heavy at times and maybe a little bit graphic for my taste, but even so, really solid. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Notable Native People by Adrienne, Keene, illustrated by Ciara. This is fantastic. I loved this book. It's basically a set of 50 mini bios of kind of important leaders across the United States, Hawaii, Alaska, different tribes and different people throughout history. So it's both historical figures as well as contemporary leaders doing all kinds of different roles of leadership within Native communities. This book is, one, beautifully illustrated. I loved the way that the illustrations were done. I thought that they were really beautiful and also just very representative of the people. So if you know what somebody looks like, that's exactly what the illustration looks like. And also I loved the layout of this. There were quite a few sections interspersed throughout the biographies talking about important concepts and issues within Native communities right now, and I loved the way that that was done. And yeah, I just thought that this collection of mini bios was fascinating. I loved the variety of it. They had so many different types of leaders as well. So you had political leaders, but also people who were doing like language revitalization, or who were looking into traditional crafts, things like figuring out what the pottery that was done or the boat sailing that was done, all sorts of really cool stuff. People who had just really big impacts on their communities. And it covers just so many different communities all across different areas of the United States. And yeah, I thought this was really fascinating. If you have any interest in biographies, if you have any interest in learning more about different Native communities, this was fantastic. I really, really loved it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And then lastly, I did DNF one book, which was Miss Adra by Iasmin Omar Ata. This is a graphic novel that I've heard about from quite a few different people, but most recently Becca at Read Becca had read this, and that reminded me that I wanted to pick it up. So I got to it, and I think that there's a lot of really good stuff going on in this graphic novel, but it ended up not quite working out for me. So the basic premise of this graphic novel is that there is a college student who is going through quite a lot in their lives. So They have epilepsy, and the seizures can attack them whenever they're tired or anxious or stressed out or anything. And because their life is very stressful, they're constantly kind of being affected by these seizures, which means that they're missing school, they're failing classes. They also are really having a lot of very difficult interactions with doctors, things like that, people who don't listen to them or believe them. It's just a lot of stress. And this is why it kind of ended up not working out for me. So I got through about 25% of this, and then I was just so stressed out by everything this character was going through that I realized I needed to put it down. I think that in terms of what it's representing, it's doing a great job. It was just overwhelming for me as a reader. I did think though that this was fantastic in terms of the way that it was illustrated. I loved the colors and the lines and the way that the panels were used to show what the character's going through. I loved the way that the epilepsy itself is depicted as this kind of knives with chains wrapping around the character. I mean, I thought that the illustrations in this were really stunning, and the way that it embodied a lot of what the character was going through was fantastic, but just the emotions in this were so overwhelming for me. So yeah, I think that if you're interested in reading a graphic novel about somebody going through this and you're okay with kind of that more anxiety-filled experience, this is a great book to pick up, but it just didn't work out for me personally. Okay, so that is everything that I read and DNF'd this week. If you guys have read any of these, if you're interested in them, if you have any thoughts, or if you want to tell me what you've been reading this week, I'd love to hear from you. Just leave me a comment down below.